So first off, welcome to the Booksmith. This is where you're at. Please take a moment to turn off all your cell phones, anything that makes noise, pagers, anything that makes noise. Sorry. And our event catalog is also on the chair. If you're interested in our other events, we do have a variety of not just readings, but game nights and a clown night. And we've got a few to note. One is called Wordplay, and it's basically like charades and trivia night, and it feels like a literary family feud with authors. And there's another event that we notably have here called Shipwreck, where 6 authors compete and they write the best erotic fan fiction. And next month they're going to be remaking something called The Shining. I don't know if you've heard of it. Also, just for this event, the books are available at the register, not just the anthology tonight, which we're focused on, but also other books by the authors themselves. After the reading, there'll be a short Q&A for any comments or questions that you might have and want to ask the authors directly. And then after that, we'll have the signing. So please come back for the signing, which they'll do up here. And lastly, this is the longest preparatory intro, but lastly, there is someone filming, and they are from Lit Scene. And so please be aware that if you're saying something in his vicinity or perhaps in his periphery, you might be filmed or recorded. So yes, perhaps those cell phone calls could be taken somewhere else. And now for the event. We are here to celebrate XO Orpheus and the wonderful authors in this anthology, 4 of which are now here tonight: Anthony Mara, Karen Tay Yamashita, Zachary Mason, and Edward Gavin. Oh, did I do that wrong? Did I do that? Hold on. Oh, Govin. I'm horrible tonight. Sorry. And I'd like to go ahead and pass the microphone over to them and let the authors introduce themselves to share a bit about how they became involved with the anthology and perhaps some background to their story, or rather even their myth. And we will start with, in this order, Anthony, and then Karen, Zachary, and then Edward. So Anthony. Please come up.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for coming out here tonight and hearing a few of our myths, and thank you to the Booksmith for hosting this. We're all very grateful. I became involved with this project as I become involved with most projects with an email out of the blue. And I was invited to write a myth, to rewrite a myth, to reset a myth, to take a myth that had meant something to me and take a different take on it. Basically, thinking about how myths, these myths that have become, part of our common culture, can be tweaked a little bit and personalized. And for a while, I was planning to do Sisyphus, and I was planning to do this myth about an astronaut lost in orbit, sort of circling the Earth. But it's hard to get much drama out of a guy in a space capsule. So I ended up thinking about Daedalus and the myth of Daedalus. He, of course, was trapped on an island, and he built these wings so that he and his son Icarus could fly away. And Icarus flew too close to the sun and died in the ocean. And I always sort of wondered would his next invention be? What would your invention be after your previous invention had killed your son? And so that cheery subject is the subject of my little story. Thanks.
Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you to Carolyn and Booksmith, and also to Kate Bernheimer, who's not here but is here in spirit. I wrote something about a mythic place that's not too far away from here. It's Santa Cruz, and that is someone's paradise. I suppose I wondered actually after I wrote it, and also that it's published here, if you would really get it. or he would know what I was talking about. And I think there's some things that I tell you. About sometime in the 70s, well, okay, whatever you're thinking the myth of Santa Cruz is, I think you think that there are a lot of hippies there, that surfing was, invented there, and that also that it's a home of Angela Davis and a lot of colored homosexuals. And so those are some of the things that I'm playing with here. I'm going to read it to you later. But there's one other thing, that in the 70s, as the University of Santa Cruz was being was starting or founded, there were a series of killings there. There were serial murders, and it's about the same time as Charles Manson. So there's a turn in the feelings about that mythic place in that paradise. So that's what that's about.
So, I'm not a big fan of social networking, but I was listening to NPR, and I think it was This American Life. They were talking about Facebook and how there's a special inbox for random email from people you have no connection to.
Can you speak louder?
Sure. Okay, this is better. So, to recap, Ira Glass was talking about how on Facebook there's a special inbox for emails from people you have no connection to. So I thought that sounded interesting, so I logged onto Facebook for the first time in about 9 months, duly found this inbox, and there was an invitation from Kate Bernheimer to participate in the anthology, so that was lucky. I also told Kate the story, and she then checked her special sort of slush pile inbox and found something significant, although I can't remember what it was. So anyway, that's how that happened. As far as what I'm doing, it's a redaction of the Narcissus myth from Ovid's Metamorphoses. And I thought that myth was interesting because it seems like there's a sort of tension in the story that's unresolved. There are a lot of pieces floating around that in Ovid's version that don't seem like they're quite in harmony. So I wanted to find that harmony. Thanks.
Hello. Thanks. Thanks a lot for coming tonight. And also, I'd like you to please welcome my author, Georges Olivier Chateaubriand. I'm a translator from the French. My name is Edward Govan, and I translated a story by this gentleman for Kate Bernheimer's anthology. I have worked on quite a number of his stories. Back in 2010, he's put out more than 100 and odd short stories in France, but we picked about 23 of them and put them in a book from Small Beer Press called A Life on Paper back in 2010. So we have a good working relationship. And he's actually the first translator I ever heard lecture was John Felstner, who teaches at Stanford here, and he talked about tacking a photo of Paul Celan right above his desk when he was working on his famous translations of Celan's poetry, but also his biography of Celan. And given Celan's life, I would find that a bit penitential, but I like to have I like to have him around behind my shoulder, frowning at my choices. Well, Greco-Roman references really peppered his work. And the hero of his latest novel is named Vertumnus, for example. But he has a special fascination for flying men with and without wings. A recurring character in his novels and stories is a guy named Menelaus, who is a man who can really defy gravity, but who hides this gift by being a trapeze artist. And one of the first Chateaubriand stories I ever smuggled into English was entitled Icarus Saved from the Skies. And that protagonist there also tries to hide his, well, I guess in the US we would probably refer to as powers, right? So it's interesting that even though Chateau Renaud wrote these stories mostly in the 80s and early 90s, when they, because by virtue of entering the English language when they did in the apogee of the comic book era, what it was originally classical, I think, in his intention gets moved into another context a lot. But here, in this anthology, in Kate's anthology, we're back in mythology instead of the more contemporary mythology of comics. And also, I was just solicited by Kate via email. Thanks.